Ya, dan untuk mengetahui bagaimana situasi terkini di kawasan Iran pasca insiden penembakan pesawat Ukraina, kami sudah terhubung dengan CNN International Diplomatic Editor Nick Robertson yang sudah berada di Abu Dhabi, Uni Emirat Arab. Good afternoon, Nick. Well, Nick, Iran admitted Iran admitted that they mistakenly shot down the Ukrainian passengers plane and also caused 176 passengers killed. How is the latest situation in Iran, and what Iranian government saying and plan to do next after they admitted that they did it?
They're under big international pressure. The Canadian Prime Minister, the Ukrainian President have both said that Iran has taken a first step, but it needs to take many more steps. It needs to provide international investigators access. It needs to give clarity in the investigation. It needs to be a thorough, transparent investigation to bring closure for the families. So they're under pressure there from the international community. Domestically, pressure heats up on them because there have been demonstrations on the streets of Tehran. People are angry that the government hadn't done enough to protect its own citizens. The vast majority of people aboard that plane were Iranians, and the Iranian military had suggested grounding civilian aircraft. So this is what part of the basis of the anger is, that their leadership for several days prevaricated. It knew that it had shot down this plane. It finally told the truth. So people are very angry. They're saying, death to the dictator, meaning the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. These protests were several thousand people outside a university in Tehran last night.
Well, how is the government responding to this? Is there any kind of plan that the government will do for the next step?
It's not clear how they're going to deal with the calls for a thorough, absolute, transparent investigation. The Canadian Prime Minister said that they are slowly letting in Canadian investigators. Ukrainian investigators are there. So that's, I think, something the international community is going to watch. It's not clear quite all the steps in the investigation that the Iranians are prepared to take at the request of the international community. Domestically, we know exactly how the Iranian leadership handles street protests, and that is to stop those protests as quickly as possible. And last night that involved using police with tear gas. Indeed, the British ambassador in Iran was arrested last night at the protest. The Iranians accused him of being in the protest. He was held for several hours. The British foreign minister has said that this was against a violation, a flagrant violation of international law. And the ambassador himself said that he was not there being part of the protest. So at the moment, it seems that Iran is going to try to maintain a strong hand domestically to keep these types of protests off the streets.
Well, talking about that, is there any kind of communication that has been built between Iran government and Ukrainian government to respond what Iran has confessed that they mistakenly shot down the Ukrainian plane?
President of Ukraine has spoken with Iranian leaders. He spoke with President Rouhani. The conversations we're not privy to. The Ukrainians have laid down what they expect and what they want. Certainly, we're not hearing at the moment from these principal interlocutors like Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, or Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, that they are being blocked, but they're being very clear, stating publicly what they expect to happen. How much engagement Iran gives really is an open question at the moment. Typically, they are very sensitive of this type of domestic issue. Typically, they wouldn't be expected to give much access to military facilities. That's been their practice with the international communities when it comes to nuclear inspections as part of the international nuclear agreement. That military issues have been sort of set to one side and are a very sensitive issue for the Iranians. So potentially, if they behave as they have in the past, they could limit the scope of part of the investigation. And are they going to do what many of those people on the streets are demanding, which is to have a full, thorough, transparent inquiry into why the plane got shot down, so that Iranians will know why it happened, and Iranians will know that their government cares about them enough to make sure that they don't get killed in these types of situations. Again, past practice in Iran is very, very limited transparency on these things and to lock up people who criticize the government.
Well, you mentioned before that even the transparency of the process of the investigation itself is still limited by the Iran government. And then how is it going to be influenced, or how is it going to be reacted by the U.S. government? How do you think that the White House would think about this?
What we've seen the White House do so far is support the protests on the street, essentially saying that they're legitimate. That's going to certainly not be something that's liked in Tehran, but at this moment, the Iranian leadership seems to be on the back foot and struggling to keep up with events and struggling to sort of maintain a coherent single message that maintains itself over a period of days. For several days, they were essentially saying that they didn't shoot down the aircraft, and then suddenly they said that they did. That's a leadership that's under pressure and in disarray. So it's not clear that they're sort of out of that part of their handling of the situation right now.
Well, what would you think that the world could do to help the process of the transparency of the investigation itself? Because there are lots of the family of the passenger is seeking for the truth, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is how the Canadian Prime Minister frames it. This is about getting clarity that allows families of victims to get closure, because there's nothing worse if somebody you love has been killed and you can't get the answers to why it happened. Those are ongoing horrible issues that you have to deal with, as well as that bereavement. The sort of things that the international community is talking about is giving investigators full access to all the evidence, and that would include all parts of the aircraft. When the Ukrainian investigators first arrived on the scene, they said that some parts of the aircraft were missing and they didn't get to see them, and it's not clear that they've been able to see those parts of the aircraft yet. It would also involve the black boxes getting decoded and deciphered, getting the data interpreted at an international site, perhaps French, where they have a high level of expertise and experts available to do that. So will Iran hand over the black boxes untampered for international officials to to go through the data there and come up with an analysis of the data? Will all the radio traffic communications between the control tower and the aircraft back to the ground, will all that be released? Will the communications between the surface-to-air missile battery and their higher command, that we understand from the commander of that missile battery that they requested guidance from their leadership in the seconds before this incident took place and they didn't get it? Will transcripts of all that be released? This is what's going to be important for the family. Those 10 seconds that the missile battery operator, commander thereof, said that they had to make a decision. What was said at that moment? Is there a possibility that this incident could have been averted? And for Iran to answer the question, why didn't they decide to ground all civilian air traffic that night as a precaution, out of an abundance of caution? They knew that they were firing missiles that night. They were the only ones that knew how long that attack was going to last. They knew what missile defensive capabilities they had in that area. They knew where the civilian aircraft were flying. They had all the pieces of the puzzle, and therefore the responsibility would be on them to make a determination about the safety of civilian aircraft. So that question is going to be scrutinized. There are so many avenues here, to bring full clarity on an investigation that Iran is going to have to open up to if it's going to meet the demands of the international community. And this has not been something that Iran has been particularly or even measurably good at in the past.
Well, according to that, how is the condition itself right now? Is there still any kind of public or civil aircraft that is going around in that area, or how is it right now?
Business as normal. It's out of the highly tense environment that was witnessed on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So it appears as business as usual that civilian air passenger jets are taking off from Tehran's international airport and flying out of the country. I mean, I should add to that, there are still some international carriers that still deem it too safe to fly over that airspace or certainly fly regular routes to Tehran.
Okay, so you can say that the commercial plane is still flying around in Iran area even after the accident happened. But then the next question would be, after this accident or the mistakenly shot the plane from Ukrainian aircraft, mistakenly shot down by the Iranian government, how is then the relationship or the effect with the U.S. and also Iran itself? How is the tension is going to be with Iran and between Iran and also United States?
You know, Iran's leaders see United States as an existential threat to their existence. That having U.S. troops in the region means that their theocracy, that their leadership of Iran is in danger. And this is why they are continuing to push for the issue that U.S. troops should leave the region. So what Iran has done here is essentially say that by admitting to making a mistake shooting down this passenger jet, they're essentially prioritizing these tensions with the United States, because they're going to have to accept all the anger of the domestic of Iranians in the country and of the international community. But it's a far bigger issue for them to try to have some credibility on the downing of the aircraft when their credibility is already so low in the international community, as they're going to look for any kind of leverage and international support that they can get to maintain their position that the United States, being in Iraq and being in other parts of the Middle East, is detrimental to Iran, and to want to get them removed. So that's that part of the puzzle. As for the downing of the jet, you know, the United States is not directly involved in that, other than being the place of manufacture of Boeing aircraft, and therefore parts of the plane would necessarily fall under the scope, international legal scope, that Boeing jet officials could be part of the investigation, and the Iranians do seem to have accepted that. But the pressures that internally this brings on Iran because of this, you know, making a mistake, is something that the United States will use to point to say that this is an unpopular leadership. The United States continues to say that it's ready to meet with the Iranian leadership, that it is not trying to bring about a regime change in Tehran. It is not, the downing of the aircraft is not over the longer term. I don't think we can expect that to be part of the ongoing tensions between Iran and the United States, but it is certainly providing a heated environment for any diplomat to try to see a way to bring an idea about how to move the situation diplomatically forward.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Nick Robertson.